industry. I think in 2015, when I made the decision to leave WWE, I actually came to peace with the fact that I wasn't going to be world champion. And that was my driving force in the wrestling business for many, many years, was to become the first British world champion.
So, you're John Gold, the John Gold.
Yep. How's life?
It's okay. I mean, I'm back. Been back with family in Chicago for a while. So actually tomorrow heading back to LA.
Okay.
But, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm in LA. It's barely moved for the past 3 months, obviously, like most people.
Yeah.
I think next week I'm off on a little mini vacation to Paso Robles.
Okay,
Slightly
yeah.
up north, wine country, out in the open space and stuff like that. So nice to get away from home for a little bit, yeah.
That's a good thing. You know, you got to maximize. And soon, I mean, they're starting up production slowly. So, you know, maybe back in gear, right?
Hopefully we get some business again, because everything I was supposed to be doing all got shut down immediately, even my wrestling stuff. And yeah, hopefully the entertainment industry can kick back off again pretty soon.
Totally. All right, I'll do a quick intro and we'll roll right into it.
Cool. All right.
It's Jim Alexander here with Real Talker. My guest today, one of my favorites, Stu Bennett, his latest film, I Am Vengeance 2. I saw the first one. We actually talked when the first one came out, so looking forward to chatting about this one again. Stu, how's everything? I see the beard. You got your quarantine beard, right?
Yeah, I've got the hat on. I normally don't like to be scruffy, but it's been 4 months since I last had a haircut, and I was like, I've got to tame this somehow. I'm not going to bust out the clippers anytime soon and shave this. I'm almost 40. I'm going to hang on to my hair as long as I can.
Why not?
But yeah, everything's good. Excited to be promoting I Am Vengeance Retaliation. As you mentioned, it's the second film in the franchise, so out this Friday. So pretty excited for it.
There you go. John Gold at it again, huh? It's become like a franchise. I mean, with the second one, it's sort of like a thing now. You guys have an established kind of foundation for it. Did you know coming into the first one, I mean, you have the returning director, you have the same team in a lot of ways too. Got some cast additions we're going to talk about. But did you kind of have an idea for this to be a multiple series, in a sense, a franchise, when you initially went into it?
Okay, so Ross Boyask, who is the writer and the director, he works for Evolutionary Films. I met him in 2015 when I was shooting another movie at the time with Scott Adkins, a film called Eliminators. And we met in a parking lot, and he pitched this concept of John Gold and the movies that he was writing. And he told me there and then, look, I have this plan. It's going to be a long-running franchise. I have all these ideas in my head. And of course, being a veteran of the entertainment industry, which, wrestling too and all that other stuff, I'm aware that everybody lies constantly and promises you the world and doesn't deliver, usually. However, I will say he's one of very few guys who seems to deliver everything he's ever told me. So yeah, I was absolutely told that it was going to be a long-running franchise at the time, but I certainly took it with a pinch of salt, and I was pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be correct.
Yeah, no, it definitely has. Twice, you returned for this role. And this time, you guys added one of my favorites. I love Vinnie Jones. I think Vinnie Jones is one of the coolest actors out there. Those that don't know, guy did Snatch, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, just a ton of movies. I mean, he's one of the really good, underrated kind of working actors that's been in a lot of things. What was it like working with Vinnie on this project? It was cool to see you guys team up in the film. I really enjoyed the back and forth between you guys.
Yeah, Vinny's awesome. I mean, a lot of Americans perhaps won't know this, but prior to him being a movie star, he was a very famous soccer player in the UK, and he was kind of the villain of the soccer world, where he would constantly just foul everybody and get sent off and get in trouble. He was like the notorious bad guy in the world of soccer. Transitioned that into being the notorious bad guy in the world of film. So I've been a fan of Vinnie Jones since I was a little kid. He's a bit older than me. But in the 80s, I was a fan of his as a soccer player. Then he started bringing out all these great films like, the Guy Ritchie stuff that you mentioned. As I got to like my late teens, early 20s, and I was a huge fan of that too. So to get to work with him was amazing. And as you mentioned, he's already had an amazing career in the movie game. He's worked with some fantastic actors and directors. So the level of knowledge that he brought to the set, aside from his performance and his name value that he brought, he also brought a level of knowledge that helped pretty much everyone on the set to grow. Because I'm an up-and-coming actor, and even the director and the director of photography, we're all kind of learning as we go and developing still. And to get Vinny's level of knowledge and experience on set was fantastic.
You know, the thing about this film that really strikes me, actually, the both films in the franchise, is, man, you guys have a hell of a fight choreographer, because the fights in this movie are really badass, and they're on point, as good as it gets, really. I mean, that's some real good fight choreography, and even the use of weapons. Tell me about the person who orchestrates it all, because they're doing a fantastic job, and you see you and Vinny really going at it like legitimately, like you guys are ass kickers, you know, that I know you have a fighting background in a sense, and Vinny's known for his bad boys, but man, the fight choreography looks 100% in this movie badass.
Yeah, well, the fight choreographer is a guy called Tim Mann. I think he's Swedish. He's a guy I'd worked with before on Eliminators, and he works on a lot of the Scott Adkins films. And he's one of the best in the game, certainly for that level of indie film. And it was great working with him again. And one of the key differences, I think, between the first Vengeance movie and this one, Iron Vengeance Retaliation, is that we had a lot more action scenes involving multiple people this time. Whereas the first one, it was basically me fighting all the way through. This time, we've got me fighting Vinny all the way through and a couple of other people. We've also got a couple of female fighters who are fantastic. Phoebe Robinson-Galvin, I forget the other girl's name. I'm so sorry. But amazing female fighters in there, just great martial arts backgrounds and stuff like that. And I think, you know, a couple of the female fights in there will actually blow people away. I think there were some of the best moments in the movie.
No question. I think that's what really took me apart, because were they professional fighters? Because they seem like they would be professional, either martial artists or whatnot, because it was on par. I mean, when you talk about their fight scenes, they were pretty hardcore and really went at it.
Yeah, Katrina Durden is the lady I forgot to mention.
That's right.
There. But the pair of them, I don't think they're professional fighters, but they've certainly trained in martial arts to a very high level. I don't think they've actually competed, as far as I'm aware. I actually get in a fight scene with one of them in there, and I'll be honest with you, I went into it being a little apprehensive, because I'm from a pro wrestling background. In my entire career, I've had thousands of matches and stuff like this. I've never once had to work with a female in that capacity. I was a little concerned because of the size difference, the power difference. I didn't know if it was going to come off as credible. But I'll be honest with you, Katrina absolutely kicked my ass, and I came out of that one, and I knew I'd been in a fight, and she more than held her own. So she's a fantastic performer.
Yeah, no question. You know, you mentioned you're kind of an ascending actor, and you really, I'm telling you, you've really grown, because I followed your career in the WWE from the start, and the way you've progressed from the wrestling world into the film, it's been a pretty unique transition. I mean, it's the game has some similarities, but it's obviously different when you're working on set versus in front of live audiences. Tell me your kind of journey to the acting, and what sort of people did you study with? Because I really am impressed with your acting skills. I think they're really, for someone that's, you know, still kind of new to the game, they're really good at this point.
Yeah, I mean, professional wrestling, for those who don't know, is very much a performance. We're playing characters, we're simulating fighting, but it's a lot more improv as opposed to the kind of stuff you will get on a film set, which is very specific and choreographed. And it's also one of the biggest differences between professional wrestling and being on a film set is the adrenaline levels. Now, when you're on live TV and you've got a crowd of thousands screaming at you the whole time, it's very easy to get your adrenaline up. But when you're on take 15 of the same fight scene, and the cameras have just changed an angle slightly, it's very hard to continue that level of emotion and that level of adrenaline you're trying to put into a scene. So that's probably one of the main differences. In terms of my growth as an actor, I've always felt that one of my biggest strengths in wrestling was my speaking ability and my character performance ability, and that's probably what got me the most success in my career. So it was probably a more natural transition for me than a lot of people in the wrestling world, but it's something that it's constantly, you know, a work in progress. And what tends to happen is I shoot the scenes, they all get put together, edited, and I'll watch it back, and then all I ever see from myself in anything I ever do is the mistakes, and they're like glowing red every time. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have. And then the next one, I'm a little bit better, and the next one a little bit better. And, you know, working with acting coaches and speaking to other actors on set and speaking to directors like Ross Boyask who point you in the right direction, help fine tune you. So it's a constant, you know, chiseling away at trying to get to the perfect performance, I suppose, which will never be met by me. I can guarantee you that, but I'll always try and get a little bit better every time and keep improving.
That's all you can do. As a performer yourself, as an athlete, in a sense, that's what you do. You learn from your mistakes and you kind of watch it over and you want to correct it. That's kind of the film study aspect of it, studying your own, weaknesses and stuff and working on it. I think that's kind of the mentality that a lot of athletes have. And they might be hard on themselves in a lot of ways, but they're very particular about the things they do. So I can
exactly.
I can sense that.
If you're your own biggest critic, that is what is going to lead you to success. And I guarantee you, anyone who has criticisms of anything I've ever done, I've already criticized myself 10 times worse than them. So that is a reason for success, I think, in any discipline, to be your own worst critic, and I try and maintain that.
I wanted to jump in quickly to wrestling. It's been 10 years recently. I saw a post from you that Nexus debuted. I can't believe it's been 10 years went by. When you look back at it, one thing you've done so much in your wrestling career. You've done different characters and stuff. I always felt Nexus was one of the greatest factions of all time. But when I wonder, does it ever bother you to kind of look back that you never won a world championship, a WWE title? Because I felt like you were always so close to it and in line. It bothers me as a longtime fan that you never kind of got that opportunity to be a champion, a heavyweight champion. When you look back at that, any thoughts about it? Any kind of things you wish you did differently in a sense?
I think it's always going to be something that hangs over me to a degree. I think in 2015, when I made the decision to leave WWE, I actually came to peace with the fact that I wasn't going to be world champion. And that was my driving force in the wrestling business for many, many years, was to become the first British world champion. Now, fortunately, a very good friend of mine, Drew McIntyre, has recently won the WWE championship. He is Scottish. He's not really a full Brit, in my opinion, but I'll probably get a lot of backlash for saying that. But I'm a big fan of his, good friends with him, speak to him regularly. So I'm thrilled that he did that. It is always something that will slightly chip away at my ego, of course, but I tried as best I could to come to peace with it in 2015. But I'll never be fully at peace, you know that.
Oh, yes, of course. It's funny too that you were also notorious over King Barrett, and now it's still the gimmick continues. We have King Corbin right now. I mean, there's been a lot of kings. King Booker in a lot of ways, Jerry King Lawler. How do you rank the kings in the wrestling hierarchy?
It's like anything. It's simply a character tool that can be developed by quality writing, and you can put a crown on someone and call them the king, but if you then follow it up with really bad writing and really bad character development and direction, then it's worthless. And that's how I felt I was when I was portraying a king character there. I felt like it wasn't backed up with any solid form of creativity or writing, and because of that, I was disappointed with it. In itself, there's nothing wrong with being king of the ring. It's quite the accolade, especially if you look back at the history and the people who've had it. But it's only ever going to be as good as the writing and the direction that it's given. So that's my thoughts on King Barrett. Not my highlight, that's for sure. Not my highlight of my career.
But you tried it, you tried it all. That counts at some point. I mean, obviously the Nexus days, the kind of thing. Now, I mean, wrestling kind of expanded. We have AEW now, a new company. How do you feel about having more of your friends getting opportunities in a sense, and having another company that finally can give some competition to a company like WWE?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think the best thing about the digital world and digital revolution is the democratization of the professional wrestling industry, and that so many opportunities and great companies are out there now that provide employment for people, gives wrestlers a bit of leverage when it comes to contract negotiations. I actually work with a company called NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, and I work on commentary for them currently, which I love doing. Yeah, like I said, there's a ton of options out there now for pro wrestlers. And when I was coming through, when I was younger, there really was only one game in town. You either worked there or you weren't viewed as a success. And I think that's different now. And I think people have the option to go elsewhere other than WWE, and I think it's fantastic that that's available to them now.
Yeah, and you mentioned you do NWA commentary. Is that still kind of like the sense that gives you a little bit of taste of still being in the wrestling industry, doing a commentary, but also you obviously, acting is a full-time gig. You need to develop time and, you said, grow as a performer in that field too. Is that how you want to balance things going forward? Do you want to ever step back kind of full-time into the wrestling game, or is kind of what you're doing with NWA a commentary thing just enough to satisfy your kind of the wrestling cravings and focus on acting? How do you kind of see yourself going forward?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I left WWE was that it was taking up 100% of my life. I didn't have any balance. I didn't have any family balance or anything like that. And subsequent to leaving there, I've got a lot more things going on in my personal life, in terms of doing different things like hosting shows, like doing wrestling commentary, doing some acting, doing some appearances here and there. I definitely get a real buzz being involved in the wrestling industry still. That will never go away. And I think, as I mentioned, one of my favorite things about being involved in the wrestling industry when I was a wrestler was the character and the storyline stuff. And that's always been the biggest draw of wrestling for me. And the cool thing about being a commentator is that you get to paint those stories for other people. So I'm still involved in very much the creative, the story, the personality side of professional wrestling, which has always been my favorite aspect of it. So yeah, I'm definitely getting very fulfilled by that. That's not to say I will never step back in a wrestling ring if the moment is right and the situation works for me. I don't think I would ever go back to the world of professional wrestling as a full-time professional wrestler, because I've done that. I'm almost 40 now, and I don't think my body would hold up to it either. But for a short run or, sporadic appearances here and there, if the situation is right, I'd definitely be open to that.
Sounds good. And finally, I want to wrap it up. What are some things you're doing for fun? I mean, you're a busy guy. You traveled so much on the road for all these years. Now you're kind of have a little bit more balance in your life with acting. But what are some things you kind of like to do to get away? Maybe hobbies or things of interest away from performing in the industry?
Well, after spending so much time on the road, sometimes just sitting at home reading a book and hanging out with my girlfriend is a lot of fun and taking it easy. But I really love the world of alcohol. I'll be honest with you. I like to experience every form of alcohol there is, obviously responsibly. But that's definitely a passion of mine, learning about the production processes of alcohol. I'm off next week around a few wineries in the Paso Robles area of California. So that's definitely a hobby of mine, as strange as it may sound.
There you go. That's good. You see, you have various interests outside, and that's what makes it. I always felt like to make a great actor or performer, you need to have a real life as a person, and you've certainly lived a real life with your background in, being a bouncer, a fighter, all these things you've done in life. It brings pretty much, you can see it sometimes in your work. It kind of comes through in your work that you've had different life experiences and you bring it to your work, which always makes a fulfilling performer. So I've enjoyed watching you over the years, Stu. I'm happy to see you in movies now and enjoy your work there. It's cool that you transitioned so well from wrestling to the acting world. And man, wherever you're at, I'll be following and keep on watching and rooting.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate the support from you, and congratulations on your continued success too. And thanks again for the support you've always shown us. And,
absolutely.
Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Let's hope to connect again on your next movie.
Definitely.
There you go. Take care. Enjoy the winery, Stu.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Teeth, hands in the air.
Most of us now are just starting to have some fun.
Wonder how many people he's killed this week.
5 so far.